Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom, or also with Kevin Noon. Tom and I are on location here in Ann Arbor. Kevin, at an undisclosed location we are not allowed to mention. Tom, how's it going?
Oh, Tony, I am great. It is the Monday of Michigan week. It is a little windy out here. Tony and I are kind of in similar spots, not all that far from each other, but we are outdoors. It is a little windy. It is a little brisk. So there's also roads. There are roads near us. So there will be audio misadventures of some sort. So we will be
Oh,
taking it back to the roots of this show.
I hear sirens coming as we speak. So, welcome everybody to all of that. So, yeah, we are here in Ann Arbor. We're here for Jim Harbaugh's Monday press conference, Sharon Moore's Monday press conference, talked to J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, and defensive back Mike Sainer still. And so we will talk about all of that. If you've got questions, super chats, go ahead and throw those in there. Kevin will punch them up. And this is not the Ohio State football team arriving yet. This is just regular sirens that you experience here in Ann Arbor. Tom, I think the craziest thing I heard from Jim Harbaugh today is I sort of missed the part about it being a Ted Lasso quote, but he said he likes his locker rooms like his mother's swimsuits in one piece.
Yeah, I heard that, and it was like I had not heard that either. I have not watched Ted Lasso, but apparently that's a line from that. I heard that, and I was like, well, that is going to be maybe the most Jim Harbaugh thing today. Not the most notable thing that Jim Harbaugh said or didn't say, but one of the most memorable things. And that's sort of in reference to okay, what's the state of the team? You're dealing with all sorts of stuff going on, and you've had just since the last time Jim Harbaugh held a Monday press conference, Michigan had a linebackers coach fired, uh, escaped a scare at Maryland, and now it's Ohio State Michigan week. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's always a lot of distractions around Ohio State Michigan week, and this year, particularly for the Wolverines, it feels like there are even more than normal.
Yeah, and that was a lot of the questions about everything going on and how you block it out. And fittingly, Harbaugh talked about how it's like living near a siren, having a siren going off, a deafening siren. Eventually, you become accustomed to it, and then eventually you just block it out. And that's what they've tried to do with this. And that's this is not a new situation for Michigan in terms of suspensions and things like that. So they've been dealing with this all year long. But we can get to the super chat right now.
Yeah, super chat. Steve Buckholz, good friend of the show. First, Muck Fishigan. Second, expound upon how crucial my man Sonny Styles will be and whether he should key on it or how it would be Blake Corum. I can.
Yeah, Sonny Styles is going to be very interesting to watch, and we've talked about this, Tom, about where is he in this defense. He's going to be the strong safety, but will he sometimes come up and be a third linebacker as a nickel, and you'll have Jihad Carter perhaps go in, as we saw some against Minnesota. But he's also going to be instrumental in defending, I think, Colston Loveland, their tight end. If you watch the Maryland game, J.J. McCarthy was locked in on Loveland quite a bit, looking for him as not just a number one receiver, but like at any point on third downs, big third downs, they're looking at him. So I'm interested to see how much Sonny Styles is involved with Colston Loveland, because I think that is he's a tough matchup, but Sonny Styles is the kind of guy that can make a tough matchup a little easier.
Yeah, Sonny Styles is. I mean, they've talked about him as a cheat code. They've talked about him as a secret weapon, a Swiss Army knife. We've heard it all. That's what that means. It is. This is not a one-use tool. This is something that you can use for a lot of different stuff. It slices and dices. It makes julienne fries. It can help you in run support. It can cover your tight end. It can do a little of this, a little bit of that. That's what they're going to need, because you can't just have Sonny Styles. You chase Colston Loveland around every play. That makes you very predictable. That makes you very easy to scheme against. Michigan will figure that out eventually. You have to have him be able to do a bunch of different stuff. And Kevin, he's someone who I think I don't know that Colston Loveland is the number one person that JJ McCarthy is looking for every single play, assuming Roman Wilson is back. I think Colston Loveland being the first read last week in Maryland probably had a lot to do with Roman Wilson being out. But I also do think that that's going to be one of the big storylines of this game in terms of what can Michigan do on offense.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see what they come out with. You go back a couple of games, they trot out 7 offensive linemen, they run power. I think there's a question how Ohio State will fare against power. Um, let's just be honest, the Big Ten as a whole is not a very good league this year. So Michigan's going to be able to try and do a couple things out there with that. The loss of Roman Wilson last week, if he clears concussion protocol, which I guess is what was happening with him, I mean, that is their number one target. But we've seen even in the years where Michigan was having lean years against Ohio State, they were trying all sorts of things with tight ends out there. And Colston Loveland is certainly talented enough, and you have to figure out what it is that you value most to have Sonny Styles, your Swiss Army knife, out there going against.
Yeah, and with Ohio State running a 4-2-5, and Michigan might want to throw some 6-7 offensive linemen out there, there's going to be some matchup issues, and where can Ohio State find their wins? Where can Michigan find their advantages? Is there a question on the screen we need to read there, Kevin? My phone screen is very small.
Well, a former colleague of ours, Ari Wasserman, the great Ari Wasserman of The Athletic, says, are you guys going to smash the buffet at Motor City Casino in Detroit on Friday night or what? And I was just typing, we're not staying in Detroit proper, and we will probably be doing a podcast at lunchtime, at dinner time, at nighttime snack time, at fourth meal. It's going to be wall-to-wall coverage here on Buckeye Huddle. This is a business trip for us. This will not be a pleasure trip. I am still working with Tom Orr that if Ohio State wins the game, we are stopping at Frickers in Bowling Green, and we're going to have some wings.
So I think Ari is probably familiar enough with the Ohio State beat to know which member of the Ohio State beat is most likely to find himself in a casino late at night and or smashing buffets late at night. If you don't, DM me and I can remind you who it is. It is not anyone on this screen. I don't want to blow up anyone's spot, but I don't think there's anyone on this particular video.
No, the buffet Friday night will be like 2 or 3 large pizzas as we go through some podcasts and some live streams. The questions about the legacy and what this game means, what this win would mean to the doubters and the people who have kind of pictured these last 2 years as not being legit. I thought it was interesting the way J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum answered those, basically just saying, if everybody saw the amount of work that went on behind the scenes here, you would understand. And it's like, well, that's every place. Every place has that amount of work. And so were you not doing that before? So I think there's a ton of questions that will be answered in that realm, or some biases confirmed one way or another in that realm in terms of the work and what is actually responsible for all of that. But these distractions, I do agree with the fact that when somebody asked, you've already been without your head coach 5 games, has that prepared you for this? I think it was J.J. McCarthy's like, yeah, it's old hat at this point now. We've already been without our head coach for 5 games. I mean, what's one more at this point?
Well, and not only have they been without Jim Harbaugh for 5 games, they've been without Jim Harbaugh and Sharon Moore this year, because both of them were serving a suspension for the first game of the year. So, I mean, as weird as that is, the fact that Michigan has had multiple separate scandals going on this year, unrelated scandals going on this year, both of which were deemed serious enough to suspend Jim Harbaugh for 3 games, that actually, I guess it's not like it doesn't work in their favor necessarily, but it probably allows them, much like you talked about with the siren earlier. At some point, you live next to railroad tracks, you live under the flight path at the airport. Eventually, you stop hearing the train, you stop hearing the planes go overhead. I think at some point, it does become not an issue, but less of an issue. The one thing that sort of exacerbates that, perhaps, is you keep having, oh yeah, and one more thing. This has been like a Columbo scandal for them. It's like, oh yes, one more thing. And last week, the one more thing was Chris Partridge. It's only Monday afternoon. Who knows what the one more thing might or might not be this week before the game kicks off on Saturday.
I want to address this question, and then I want to go back to the Market X question that you just had on there. But any thoughts on Harbaugh not answering when asked about his respect level for the Ohio State coaches and Ryan Day. That would have been a very easy thing to coach speak and answer. Oh, I have the utmost respect for them and what they do. And the non-answer answer tells you everything, I think, that you need to know in terms of what Harbaugh thinks of Day. I wonder what Day's response to the same question will be tomorrow. But that was very telling. And it's not just one of those things where, well, I'm just going to talk about the game at hand, because you can lie and just give coach speak. And when you don't give coach speak, it's like you don't even want to give the bare amount of truth in this. And so you just, well, you know what? I'm just going to answer something else, and nothing else matters. And that was very telling to me, pretty, very honest by his non-answer, I guess you would say.
Yeah, that was literally the first question that was asked. And it was, the question was asked, and I was fully expecting the, coach speak. And it was an answer. We'll play this whole thing later. I cut a 5-minute clip out of the press conference with everything that Jim Harbaugh said specifically about Ohio State, or at least the answers he gave to the questions that were about Ohio State. You'll hear the questions in there too, because sometimes the questions and the answers bear little resemblance to each other. But yeah, that was very much an, oh boy, here we go. And it's too bad that he's not going to be there on Saturday, because I think the dynamics of a post-game handshake between those two guys, however that game shakes out, I think we are being denied a really, really memorable college football 0.4 seconds or so if the losing coach gets his way.
You don't think it'd be one of those things where the winning coach holds on to the losing coach's hand and said, "Hey, get back here. Let's
that's the
talk."
Mac Brown. That's the Mac Brown move. He if you've not watched Mac Brown in the end of North Carolina games, he'll grab guys, he'll grab them by the back of the neck. He he looked like he was going to choke slam Shane Beamer in the season opener. It has been this bizarre storyline this year. I can't believe we're not going to get that on Saturday, but Sharon Moore has had his own memorable post-game moments, so maybe he'll bail us out and give us something to remember.
The super chat, Kevin.
Yeah, super chat. Mark Fetters. What surprises you think the offense dials up?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm continuing to watch that two-back set with Xavier Johnson and Chip Trainum, and how they use that and what they'll do out of the passing game with that. Because when those two guys come in, it's a focus of the offense, which means it's a focus of the defense. And so what are you building off of that? I'm also looking to see what they do with Emeka, getting him more involved. We saw that they're feeding him quite a bit on Saturday. He is a mismatch, because wherever the best defensive backs are, they're not going to be near Emeka Egbuka. They're going to be near Marvin Harrison. So you've already got an advantage there with Emeka, so why not use it? So those are the two of the things that I'll be watching for in terms of the Ohio State offense. Tom, I'm going to just mention other guys so that you have nothing left to mention. Kate Stover, who is super due for a touchdown, and that is Julian Fleming.
Julian Fleming is maybe even overdue for a touchdown. I'm going to take a little. I could feel what you were doing there. We've done this way too long. I know when you're setting me up to be like, I don't know, is Garrett Wilson still on the team? I don't know. Yeah, I know when you're trying to set me up for failure. Instead of giving you a name, I'm going to give you a place, and that is in the goal line. What is Ohio State going to do in goal line situations? Because last week, if you watched that Michigan-Maryland game, Maryland really looked pretty gross trying to do anything in and goal situations. I think they twice got to 4th and goal and scored on. They put someone else in at quarterback, and Tush pushed in and got in both times. It was by about that much. That is not something Ohio State has shown a lot of interest in doing so far this year. So do they do that? And if they do they get enough push in the middle of the defensive line, in the middle of the offensive line against Michigan's defensive line? Because the center position, Carson Hinzman, has not been great this year in terms of getting a lot of push. Kenneth Grant has been real good in the middle of the Michigan defensive line. So I think that's a situation where you got to be a little strategic about what you do. Frankly, if I'm Ryan Day, and I asked Ryan Day about this a couple weeks ago and didn't really get a heck of a lot of an answer, but if I'm Ryan Day, I am never, ever, ever, ever taking Marvin Harrison off the field in goal line situations, because why would you? Do you think Marvin Harrison running off the field makes Michigan sad? I don't think it does. I think Michigan does not want to see him on the field. And you put him out there, split him out to the field side, and either you have one guy on him and you have Marvin Harrison in a one-on-one situation, or you have two guys on him and then you have a numerical advantage in the box. Either one of those seems like it would be a good idea for Ohio State to do. So even if you're going to get in that like push, alignment with the two backs right behind the quarterback in like 45-degree angles, I think I still put Marvin Harrison out there and make them figure it out.
Super chat, Kevin there.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick with my prediction on the offensive wrinkle. From 0 to hero. We remember a player picking up a really costly personal foul last year for a headbutt. G. Scott Jr. with a huge touchdown. Everybody's going to focus in on what Cade Stover is going to be able to do, having a tremendous year for the Buckeyes. Little 12 personnel, G. Scott Jr. comes out, releases, and is your guy in your end goal situation and really, turns things around. So that is my wrinkle that I have there. But to the super chat, Uptown Daniel, defense holds Michigan to under 10 points this weekend. Is
that a statement or a question? That would be impressive.
That's a statement and a hell of one.
Yeah, if they do that, I've got a pretty good feeling about Ohio State's chances. I'll throw that one out there. I'll go. That's first bold prediction. If Ohio State holds Michigan to 10 points, they win this game and perhaps win by more than one score. In fact, but the struggles of the Michigan offense. If this wasn't the Michigan name, and just looking at the stats and some of what they've done the last couple of weeks and what Ohio State's defense has done, you're thinking, this is a pretty decent matchup for Ohio State's defense in terms of the struggling running game, the lack of quarterback production over the last 3 games, no touchdown passes from J.J. McCarthy, some limited accuracy last week. Like, there's a lot of things that would make you feel good about this if you weren't looking at the O and the M and the colors involved and the schools involved. I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
I agree that you haven't seen a whole heck of a lot out of Michigan. And I know if you ask anyone around the Michigan program, they can't wait to tell you that they're saving it all for Ohio State. And, they haven't had to do much because for the first 9 weeks, they haven't had to show anything. And then Penn State was, they figured out pretty quickly Penn State wasn't going to score. And so they really haven't had to show anything. And I guess I'm sure they have saved a lot of stuff. I don't think that they were running for 3.4 yards per carry last week with both Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards just to save stuff for Ohio State, because you had to win that game too. And there were moments in the second half of that game where it was very much not clear if they were going to win that game. I think the health of J.J. McCarthy would be more of a question to me, because depending on who you ask, it's an ankle. It is an ankle. That everyone seems to agree on. I think, how mobile is he going to be? That's one of the big questions. There was at one point where he was like grabbing at his shoulder or his collarbone or something during the game last week. Is it also that? We don't know. But, the health of J.J. McCarthy, and how much do they trust J.J. McCarthy? Because he has not been 100%, and they have very much tried not to put the game in his hands the last couple of weeks. Can Michigan win if J.J. McCarthy is not, to me, J.J. McCarthy is one of the big question marks for Michigan, where if the Michigan defense doesn't play the greatest game of its life, or, Blake Corum doesn't suddenly explode for 9 yards a carry, how likely is it that Michigan wins if J.J. McCarthy is just kind of like fine, like what he was last week? 50% completions, 140 yards, no touchdowns, let's say no turnovers, but just kind of like 50% completions, 140 yards.
Well, he completed 50% of his passes against Ohio State last year, but the level of those passes was staggering. So if he is at 50% this year, I don't expect the same big hits. So that would be, I think, troublesome. And it does make you wonder who is more important to the success of their team. Like if Kyle McCord has a 12 for 25 for 145 yards, feels like can Ohio State withstand that more than Michigan can, knowing what it took for Michigan's offense to do what they did against last year's Ohio State defense with the J.J. McCarthy keeping stuff alive, the big hits there. I will say J.J. McCarthy, he was asked about his health about last week. He said it was rough last week. He was banged up, feeling fine now. I don't know that you can be fine after being banged up in 2 days and, getting more banged up in that game. So clearly they're all saying he's fine. Sharon Moore said he's never been he's the best he's felt all season or something like that. And that's all coach speak that you would expect to hear. But I'm not buying it completely now. That doesn't mean he isn't going. There's going to be plenty of adrenaline in this game. He talked about growing up an Ohio State and a Michigan fan. And the next question was, how can you grow up being both? He's like, well, I was actually an Ohio State fan first. And then the experience of playing in last year's game and getting those emotions out, I legitimately think that helps him in this one because he understands what he went through last year. The whole story with him and Kyle McCord and Ryan Day, he got those feelings out last year. They don't all go away, of course, but you're able to better handle them this year. So I think last year's experience is really good for him. But you're playing a different defense, different venue, different legacy, different meaning, different stakes behind this game.
Yeah, and that's something that you're not going to know. Kyle McCord's not going to know for sure how he feels until he steps out on the field. He has gone on the road and played at Notre Dame in prime time, and that's not exactly the same thing. But it's not, that's not, oh, we played at Rutgers. Like, that's close enough that you're getting a sense for at least the general nerves of the game. I think that maybe evens things out a little bit because McCarthy, having played in the Ohio State-Michigan game last year and having done it on the road and all that, like, okay, that helps set him up. I still think the Harbaugh thing is a distraction. I think, if you're out there in a free Harbaugh shirt during warm-ups, you're thinking about it. That's not something you have set to the side. You are out there, you are actively thinking about it. You're going, man, our coach got screwed. And boy, I'm mad about that. And then you're thinking about it. So then you haven't set it aside. So I think that does kind of end up sort of balancing out to a certain degree with the quarterbacks. Ohio State on the road, they have to deal with the hostile crowd, but you're also, when you're on the road, you're kind of sequestered in your little group and you're in your bunker and you don't have a million people calling and asking you for tickets all week and you're not close to home. You're not, it's a little bit of a different experience being on the road. This is going to be a very, very hostile crowd, but if Ohio State can get off to a reasonable start, I think things could get quiet if the Buckeyes get out. The Buckeyes are out to a 2-score lead in the first half, then it's maybe a little less hostile, or maybe the hostility is a little more internally focused rather than towards Ohio State.
Super chat,
Treasure the Torah. What's up, Kevin N, Tom O, and Tony G? Just checking in, enjoying the show. Get home safe and enjoy Rivalry Week. Look forward to all the content this week. P.S. I got Ohio State winning by 14.
14. I think Buckeye fans would go ahead and take that right now. Yeah, we'll be back here in a few days. I'm just looking. I wonder if we will have the same exact parking spot on Saturday that we do right now. That would be fantastic. But even having a spot in the Triangle lot, as everybody knows, a fantastic benefit of covering a game at Michigan.
Look at Tony doxing himself.
Oh, yes. This is taped. This is a tape. Don't come see us. The Market X had mentioned that you're looking for Travion Henderson to have a Maurice Clarett game. Clarett rushed for, I don't remember, 113 or something yards against Michigan. What about a Beanie Wells, Carlos Hyde? What's 100 yards? You know what's better than 100 yards? 200 yards. I think what Chris Wells, Beanie Wells went for 222 in 2007 maybe, and did Carlos Hyde? He went for like two something? Didn't he in 2013?
Yeah, 13. I think Carlos Hyde and Braxton Miller both ran for 100 yards against Michigan in 2013, I believe. Honestly, none of those might be the single best running back performance I've ever seen in the Ohio State-Michigan series. I'm going to cast a vote for Jonathan Wells in 2001, who had 3 touchdowns in the first half, 100 and something, 140 yards maybe, something, 100 and whatever yards. And but he sprained his ankle and then missed the second half of the game. Might have missed the second, the last 2.5 quarters or something like that of that game. But that I think is up there. Not the greatest running back performance in the history of the series, or at least in our lifetimes. That was a fellow wearing maize and blue in 1995.
Stop. No.
We have to acknowledge both the good and the bad for our audience. That is part of the healing process, Kevin.
Yep, I was here for that one. That was an experience. We don't need to talk about that. I'm sure the fans don't want to hear that. What is the question there on the screen?
Tommy Kirschbaum says someone should be able to take Connor Stallion's parking spot.
Well, Tom, do you want to go into that?
Well, someone who is up here semi-frequently told us a week or two back that they had finally gotten around to removing his name from the reserved parking sign. We were wondering if Chris Partridge's name was up there, and then did not go out and look because we were hustling over here to do this. But we were assuming that, Rick Minter probably just got Chris Partridge's spot since he now has Chris Partridge's job. But yes, we did not bother to go over and check out Connor Stallion's parking spot or Connor Stallion's house. We have not done the Michigan scandal reality tour, sadly. Have not had time.
Yeah, we've made it 26 minutes and we have not talked about any of that really. And I think it's a record at this point. I think it's a record. There are bigger fish to fry. Well, that's probably as big of a fish as there is. But I mean, there is a game coming up here in a few days. For those who are joining us still, it is Tom and Tony, both in Ann Arbor, just a little bit away from each other, so their signals don't interfere with one another. I am at a secret location in Central Ohio right now, and we are talking about everything that they learned from the Michigan press conference today.
And if you could go ahead and like the video right now, then we would appreciate that. If you can go ahead and do that for us.
Can we really quickly explain to people what liking videos does and what thumbs downing videos does? So when we post the Jim Harbaugh press conference, you're not giving a thumbs up or thumbs down to what Jim Harbaugh says. You're doing that to help our content reach other people. We understand how you feel about Jim Harbaugh. That's not what the thumbs down button does on YouTube. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm going to mute the win from Tony really quick here, but here's a little pro tip. Thumbs up or thumbs down doesn't really change the algorithm. So hit the thumbs down. It doesn't, I probably shouldn't be letting you know that, but it doesn't change the geometry all that much, but
so you're telling me I've been hitting thumbs down on Big Noon and kickoff videos for all these years and it's been doing nothing? Are you kidding me?
Nothing. But I was just about to say we all gather our self-worth from the ratio of thumbs ups to thumbs down. So, you would make us all feel a lot better about ourselves if you would hit that thumbs up.
Yeah, we do appreciate all of the support as always, especially as cold as it is right now here in Ann Arbor, and I'm sure where Kevin is inside the house.
Very chilly here. Very, very, very chilly here.
Put another log on the fire.
I mean, normally we save these jokes for Tom as he's down shooting photos. And we're up in the press box eating hot dogs and popcorn.
Yeah, I am much too. I know there are a lot of Michigan people who say stuff about people in Ohio. I am much too soft to be out in the elements for 3 hours during a game trying to shoot photos or whatever photographers do. I don't know.
B-Chaps asked about you and I wearing neutral colors in enemy territory. Are we scared? Sometimes I just put on clothes in the morning, and that's how it works. I wasn't going to dress like Buckeye guy or something. Tony
Not
sometimes,
today.
me never.
Not today, you weren't.
Yeah. No, as often as I wear blue in the Woody, I think you guys should recognize at this point that sometimes I just put clothes to cover my torso because that is what society demands.
Well, and for me, Wednesdays are Cape Day, not Mondays. So as I get back tomorrow, I'll go to the dry cleaner, get back the Cape. Don't ask why. It needs to go get dry cleaned all the time, but it drags. It's muddy. It's dirty out. You hang out in enough tailgates and things happen. So it is what it is.
Ketchup stains.
Drowsy dragon there.
Yeah.
Will we see more Jermaine Matthews in place of Davison Igbinosun? I think he is better in coverage.
No, I would. You're not going to see Jermaine Matthews in place of Davison Igbinosun. You'll see him next year, maybe alongside Davison Igbinosun. But this is going to be very interesting, Tom. This is Davison Igbinosun's very first Michigan game. He is a very physical player. He is a very cornerback, if you know what I mean. And this is a new experience for him. He's played in an Egg Bowl. I'm sure that's very similar. But a New Jersey guy going to Ole Miss, but now he's here and has been inundated with all of this. I'm fascinated to see how it ends up with him. A lot of these new guys, they come in and maybe they want to prove themselves too much and they get too physical maybe, or they get a personal foul penalty. So I'm fascinated to see how he reacts to this. But he also has the kind of mentality that you need to bring in with you to Michigan Stadium on Saturday.
Well, yeah, you don't want to get too, he is physical, like extremely physical. I don't want to say overly physical, but he is never shy about playing physical to the point where he has drawn a number of penalties for his physical play. But this is not going to be a two-hand touch game. This is going to be extremely a tackle football game on Saturday. And this is a game where there is a lot of hard hitting. You are going to get hit hard. You better be ready to hit others hard. A physical defensive back, that is a good thing for Ohio State. Ohio State needs more guys who are going to be physical because there's probably going to be a pass interference call or a defensive holding call against Ohio State at some point during the game. They're not going to call 47 pass interference calls against Ohio State. That you need to be physical in the pass game. You need to be able to shed blocks, be physical enough to shed blocks when Michigan's running the ball outside. That's all going to be a very, very important part of what happens Saturday, and that gets even more true when you get a little closer to the football at between the lines of scrimmage.
Super chat?
Yeah, super chat from Treasure of the Torah. Also, I have to be totally honest that Jim Harbaugh interview was super cringe. There was even a point of the interview where Jim made a super suspect joke about mothers' bathing suits. That was surreal to see in real time. And we do have 5 minutes of him talking about Ohio State. I guess he went about 9 and change. We have 2 versions, but we have the shorter version here available on the show for whenever the guys call for it.
You want to do it now?
Yeah, let me punch.
Well, we'll come back and take care of the super chat.
We'll punch that off and let me find the super chat. So enjoy this 5 minutes and 2 seconds of Jim Harbaugh from today with audible questions.
Jim, this rivalry has always been heated, of course. It seems like there's always been a fair level of respect between the coaches. It's hard to determine what that is right now. What would you say is your respect level for Ryan Day and their staff?
It's all about our preparation for Ohio. The days, the minutes, the hours, everything leading up to this game. That's where our focus is. Preparing ourselves and planning, gonna practice and then execute. So, anything else is irrelevant, when you get into this kind of big game week.
Jim, you've obviously not been on the sidelines for several games, but especially with a game like this coming up, you talked about the preparation. How do you prepare the coaches to take on all the extra stuff that they have to take on going into the games that you've had, but especially going into this big game?
Mm-hmm. It's really a battle-tested team, and empowering people. It's really that. Empowering our coaches, empowering our players, and just amazing job that they've done. Amazing effort, and where players have gone about things, coaches, players. I just think back over the last 5-6 weeks, especially. It's just been like a high-pitched siren, like a deafening, ear-piercing noise, and just after a while, you start to tolerate it, and then before you know it, you just block it out. So it's stay on course. That's what our team has done, and just keep the priorities right, and keep the priorities straight, which is faith, family, and football.
Jim, you mentioned the high-pitched siren, and your team has dealt with it. But now this week, the two undefeated teams, the biggest game, everything else. Do you think this truly will be the challenge as to how they deal with it and how you deal with it?
I mean, it's I go back to that. It's like the Ted Lasso show, you know. Believe. And what comes out of that is believe, and I'm just so proud of our team. Despite that noise, our locker room's in one piece. And like Ted, for me, locker rooms, a lot like my mom's bathing suits. Like to see them in one piece. And we've got that, and it's amazing. And there's so many lessons to be learned, many life lessons that our young guys are learning at this age, and it's how the world works, and keeping those priorities straight: faith, family, and football. And we're battle tested and ready to go. And now it's all Ohio. The week's all about Ohio. Working really hard to get ready for this game, using the hours, the minutes, the days to hone our focus, get prepared, plan, practice, and then go execute the game.
Do you think this result could not only determine the future of the program in the short term, but also in the long term?
That's don't have a crystal ball. It's all about this game. That's where our focus is: getting prepared, getting ready to execute, and I think our team is battle tested, and it's going to be tough to beat. Looking forward to it.
Marvin Harrison Jr., does he remind you of anybody at any level or league? And what's the key to slowing him down?
He reminds me a lot of his dad. Great player. You got to be covered. You got to slow him down is probably the better word. Do our best to do that, and everything works together. Pass rush. The faster, the more pressure they can put on the quarterback, the better the coverage is going to be. Same with the coverage. The better the coverage is going to be, then that allows the pass rush to get home. So it's going to, like any game, any time you play a team, that team defense is going to be critical. It all works together.
All right, we're going to excuse Coach now, and we're going to bring in Sharon Moore.
All right. You saw Jim Harbaugh there. I'm sorry. A little distracted. A tow truck has pulled up to the car, but it's okay. The driver's just using the porta potty. So carry on. I got a little worried there.
I looked over. I saw the car pull up and the guy walk out, and I was like, uh-oh, Tony is a little nervous over there. All good. So,
well, now I have to wait for them to come out of the porta potty first. But go ahead.
That's true. So before we get to Treasure Torres Super Chat here, there was a question, not the last question, it was about Marvin Harrison, one right before that. The question, I don't know how easy it was to hear. The guy was pretty far back, so it was a little harder to hear. The question was, what does this game mean for the future of your program, both in the short and the long term? And he didn't really answer the question. But to me, that was not an Ohio State reporter asking the question to troll him. That was a Michigan reporter asking the question. About the question of Sharon Moore and some of the other players as well. This is that's the narrative around this game. That this is the kind of stuff that's on the line. That this is not just okay. The winner gets to go play Iowa and play the worst offense in the history of football. It's going to be and shrimp cocktail. That's not what's on the line here. This is for Michigan. This is a much bigger picture game because it is not only a forward-facing thing. I think there is a broad consensus that this is a little bit of a backward-facing thing as well, where, okay, the 2023 game is going to be decided on Saturday. But if Ohio State comes in and wins by 10 points, whatever, you're having a real conversation about the 2021 win, the 2022 wins. There's a real possibility the NCAA is going to take those away in a year or whatever. Ohio State could really start taking those away Saturday at about 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yep, that's when the decoration starts getting to be removed and things like that. So yeah, that's just one of the many stories. And in terms of the the nature of Jim Harbaugh's interviews. Sometimes it is difficult to watch. Sometimes it is difficult to listen to. But you never. He also sometimes he's fine and sometimes he's happy. But he always throws in something odd. Like last year, it was the Happy Warriors that he wanted his team to be. This year, quoting Ted Lasso stuff, things like that, and then also not answering any questions about the future. All of the players had the same questions, and they were, no really great answers. Sharon Moore asked about the future, and it's basically just what we're focused on today. We're attacking today. But it is very interesting to see him have to handle these questions, even though he's just, brushing them aside at this point. Because honestly, the most important thing is right now, but that is the looming question after this. And I think maybe one of the reasons he doesn't have a crystal ball is because he lets his agent do that. The agent is the one looking and talking. He just stays and does his coaching thing, unless he's interviewing, of course.
Well, and he was asked also about, had you given any reassurances by the administration about your future and anything kind of stuff? Didn't want to talk about that. And that's one of those, either that means he is not, or it means he doesn't want to talk about it and he's not going to talk about anything other than this game. Because there was not a lot of extraneous stuff. This is not a week when you're going to get a lot of so what's your favorite TV show? Like, that's not what this week is. That's like, we'll see it in July at Big Ten. Well, yes, we did find that out maybe. But yeah, we'll find that out in July at Big Ten Media Days. This is the week when job number one for everyone this week is don't say anything interesting. And I did think it was sort of ironic that the most interesting thing to me that Jim Harbaugh said was when he didn't answer the very first question of the day. That was, and you saw it there, what's your level of respect for Ryan Day and the Ohio State program? And I'm going to talk about the game and not anything. And, Ryan Day will talk about respecting the rivalry by working the rivalry every day. You respect the rivalry by working the rivalry every day. That's sort of the Ohio State answer to that. I am going to be interested to see. That's the answer that I expect to get from Ryan Day when he gets asked about it tomorrow on Tuesday at his press conference. But to have, as you said earlier, Tony, there is a very easy way to sort of throw just, mushy oatmeal at that and just sort of coach speak it out like, they do a great job. They're well coached. They're fundamentally sound. You're going to get a check. They're going to, you're going to get their best game. Like, we've all heard that answer 100,000 times. So when you're not giving that answer, when you're not giving the cheap, easy non-answer, there's a reason for that. I don't think it's a surprise. I'm starting to get the vibe, though. Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh might not like each other that much.
And it's just too bad they won't be on the same field to have some sort of a pre-game, post-game handshake. I'm not expecting. I think we talked about it a day or so ago. Not really expecting any pre-game situation with Sharon Moore and Ryan Day in terms of meeting at midfield or whatever. So yeah, it is what it is at this point. Super chat from Geiger Lee. Thank you very much for that
question from Geiger Lee. I want to jump in with something right before we get to Geiger Lee's
yep.
chat. Remember, prior to Michigan getting over the hump, whether or not it was on the field or whatever, I'm not here to judge right now. And they were operating with maybe some more psyops in terms of, hey, let's try to agitate Ohio State. Let's try to pick some fights. We've certainly seen some issues with the tunnel. They have one way in and one way out. I mean, this certainly reeks of a game where some of those psyops could be in play once again. And, I think everybody is already really on heightened alert because there is a lot of stuff being thrown from fan base to fan base, whether or not, players and coaches are necessarily acknowledging it. But, I think that that's something that certainly could be in play here. Don't you agree, or do you disagree?
No, I think there's that. There's always something. Going back many years, Michigan has always done some of the psyops. Like, I swear, one of my memories of the 96 game in Ohio Stadium is Lloyd Carr sending out the team as Greg Belisari is being introduced, the final senior, and running over the Belisari family. I don't know if it happened exactly that way, but that is one of my memories. Jim Tressel with the bomb-sniffing, drug-sniffing dogs in 2004. There's things like that. Even, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Has Jim Harbaugh always called Ohio State Ohio, or was that something he just started doing this time? Because
No, that's
it,
happened. That was a Brady Hoke thing that I think
it
has
was.
carried
I
on.
know it was.
Yeah,
I know it was a Brady Hoke thing. It just seemed like he was bringing it back.
no, I think that has happened the last few years. If we want to talk about a great psyop, Ohio State. What do they say? The people, the tradition, the excellence. Right? I think you embrace tradition. Who says no to this? What happened in this stadium 50 years ago?
Yep, I agree. Tear down that M Club banner. That's
Just to be clear, I'm joking. I'm not advocating it, but boy, it's not like if you were ever going to do it, it's not like everyone in that stadium is not going to get not can get any angrier than they are already. So if you were going to do it and honor history, this would be the year to go. Clearly not advocating, just saying.
R.I.P. John Hicks. R.I.P. John.
there you go.
All right, super chat. The guy who that picture with Jim seemed like someone was supposed to tell him what to say into a hidden earpiece that died, and he had to rely on quickly handwritten notes on the
That's why you need signs and somebody signaling in, somebody telling you what you're supposed to be saying. It's a lot of it. You need an algorithm, and it's just you can't do it necessarily on the fly if you're understaffed from low-level staffers. So there is that. Kevin, I'm cold. Tom, I'm cold. But do we have any questions, any starred questions that we want to touch on and get to?
Let me get through.
If you want to punch, if you want to punch Tony out of the show, he can go sit in the car, and I will be the strong. I will be the strong Midwesterner who stands out here.
I think he wants to go swing from the toe hook or something right now.
He wants to go to Frickers. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah, Ryan Stanson. Key to the game is OSU's interior offensive line versus Michigan's massive defensive tackles.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, because I think, first of all, if Ohio State wins that particular battle, they win the football game, because then you're able to run the ball inside and outside. You're also the path to Kyle McCord turning the ball over is pressure up the middle. We've seen that this year, where you get pressure in the middle, and then you throw off the back foot, you float one, and you get picked off, or just it's an underthrown ball when you miss an open receiver. If Ohio State can win that, I don't know that I'm expecting Ohio State to win that, but if Ohio State can win that probably, if that's the only thing you tell me, I feel pretty good about Ohio State's chances, because then, that probably opens up the run game. That probably gives you more time in the pocket. I think the interior of the Ohio State offensive line is the question. The exterior of the Michigan offensive line is the question.
Yeah, if Michigan isn't winning their advantages, then they're in trouble, and that is one of their advantages. And it should be difficult to run inside. And I've been starting to wonder if, with Travion Henderson back, everybody just assumes the offensive line, the running game has been fixed. I'm wondering if we might not see a return to the running game struggles that Ohio State has had this season. But they can still win with that as long as one of those struggling runs ends up going 60 yards into the end zone and you get a score out of it. But I don't think they're going to be able to just run up the middle, although Penn State did, and they couldn't throw the ball. So there is something there. Penn State with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, they ran for like 140 yards with no passing game, and they shouldn't have been able to do that, but they did. So I think that's the thing you can look at and build some confidence on. But Carson Hinzman's going to have to play his best game if Ohio State is going to run inside, I think.
All right, last question of the show, unless we get any super chats. So if you want to see Tony get colder, get those wallets out and super chat away. Jeff Elford, since Harbaugh's first year at U of M, 2015, the game versus Ohio State has had an average combined score of 70.4 points. 2021, 69 points. Last year, 68. Does this trend continue or end this coming Saturday? Whether or not we're talking about a lot of points, maybe 67, that would be the trend, I guess. But, gentlemen, go.
Take the under.
Yeah, the trend is not your friend in this case. I think, isn't the over-under like 47? That seems It's something in
That
that
seems high.
neighborhood. Yeah, 67 is crazy high. 27 might be high. I think there's a
27.
pretty good, sorry, 47. Sorry, thinking about the Iowa game. No, I think there's a decent chance the losing team scores under 20 points, and the higher scoring the game ends up. If this is 17-14, I think Michigan is probably at least a 50-50 to win that. If you tell me all you tell me is one team gets into the 30s, I think I'm picking Ohio State at that point. The higher scoring this goes, the better, because I think Ohio State just has more explosive players, and you're probably getting more drives. You're not getting the 8-minute drive that Michigan runs for 14 plays, 60 yards, 8 minutes off the clock, you can't kick a field goal. I think the higher scoring the game is, the more I like Ohio State's chances, but I'm not expecting a particularly high scoring game.
Yeah, I think a concern with the high scoring is that your defense has now been maybe exposed, or you thought your defense was a strength for Ohio State, and if it gets a little bit high scoring, does that create some doubts in what you thought you had, and does that get people guessing? Does that get Tommy Eichenberg leaning to Steel Chambers' side to make up for something there and leaves a gap exposed? So I could go either way on that one. I'm expecting a close game, and however it ends up, it ends up. I would expect, if we're going 27 or 77, I'm taking the 27. I'll say that for sure. And I don't expect. This is very, very easily could be a 20 to 17 thing. If it ends up being like a 38-35, I think we'll all be shocked by that.
Well, remember 42-39, that year was supposed to be a game that was going to be like 9-6 or something. So I don't know if you can ever really predict what's going to happen there. But apparently our viewers like Tony because we do not have any other super chats coming in. And, for people who are coming in late, guess what? We're going to have plenty more content on the podcasting channels. If you guys want to talk about what we got coming up, because I don't even know. I just plan on being on camera all damn week. Maybe on Thursday.
Yeah, we do thank you all for joining us on Monday. And again, we will have stuff for you every single day. So again, if you haven't yet, please like this video. It always helps us. And if you haven't yet, come join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member. Check us out there on the message board, the content that we've got beyond the paywall and all things like that. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys.